Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing this one bed non-standard construction property in Pontefract. Let's jump straight in. So as you can see, it's not the typical property I review on this channel, but it's a very unique one for the right buyer. Now, yes, it's a bit old school, a bit rickety. Access is a bit of an issue. However, if you want a fast-paced, dynamic and exciting lifestyle, then the exit opportunity on this property is right up there. The other thing that I love about this from the off is just the amount of space in the garden. If we look right at the end, included within the price at the end of this is a 3-bed semi-detached property. So with this property, there's kind of this side access coming in, and the first room is the kitchen. The first thing you'll realize about this kitchen is there isn't one. Now, why is that actually important? Well, really, there's only one thing. Doesn't matter about the fact there's not one, because it in fact just reduces cost of getting rid of one. But because there's no way of it being habitable now, so there's no place to cook, clean and stuff like that, it means it is a cash only purchase, and that is getting rid of a lot of buyers, or a positive way of looking at it, all of your competition. So coming into the main lounge, and I say main, or the only lounge, you can immediately see this is the full width of the whole house. So some terrace, semi-detached, any house really, often what you find is a sort of thinner but longer property, and this is good and bad, by the way. So the fact that it's a wide property is that it gets a lot of natural light, and the downside is there's a lot of underutilized space. What you can see is it's pretty much stripped now. Again, there's no damp whatsoever, solid walls, no visible cracks at all, and again, it's just really looking at the windows now. It's got this kind of weird handles. That's not twisted, that is the actual design. Now these ones aren't so bad, apart from the fact they're now shut. Now when you are downstairs doing your chores, you're cleaning up, cooking in the kitchen, sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a downstairs toilet instead of going up and down. And as you can see in here, there's most of the toilet available. However, you do need to get a little bit creative with how you do your business. These stairs are a little bit more Yorkshire on the legs. And immediately as you're coming through, a decent amount of light, and you come into the front bedroom, which is one of those where I hate these size bedrooms. Now the good thing is it's quite good with the storage behind where the boiler's being put up here. But in terms of this bedroom, it technically is a double bedroom, but definitely a kid's room with a single bed would be absolutely fine. This is what we would call the master suite of the property, and not a lot to say about this room in particular, apart from it's a really good size, no obvious points of damp or anything like that, no cracks at all. There is a tiny bit of a gap here, but that is just where this has been put up and maybe not put to the edge, so that's not a problem. And in terms of the layout, I think it's really good, a lot of space, and added bonus, windows that open. Room number 3, and again, it's a really nice size. You can tell the previous owner was a bit of an interior design connoisseur with some exposed brickwork every now and then throughout the property. Get into it, again, big room, no obvious signs of major damage. Obviously it needs a full scrape back, skimming, plastering, and good to go. Electrics on there, at least in here the positioning of the radiators a good shout. Always good getting them under a window, making sure for space standards it doesn't do anything, no damage. But again, very nice size room and a lot of opportunity to lay this out well if you got the property dressed. So I'm not a fan of all of the grey in here. It feels a little bit medical. Kind of reminds me of my old school, which is a massive Victorian building, and they decided to create the whole thing grey. How boring. Let's get down and dirty with the numbers. So the purchase price of this property is £96,500. We've got around £10,000 worth of buying costs. Now that includes the legals at £1,600. We've got the EICR, which is the electrical certificate once it's ready. CP12, which is the gas safety certificate. That's about £300. And you've got our fee included, which is £6,500 plus VAT. The reason why we've got a fee on this one is that this is actually for one of our Aspire Property Group clients, APG, where we do a full hands-free service for them. We've also got stamp duty at £2,895. as well as the refurbishment on this property of around £22,500. We might spend a little bit more really getting it up there. And then we've got holding costs of minus £1,410. How can you have minus holding costs? Holding costs are things like council tax, utilities, etc. Now, if we're to hold, it would be a refinance, okay? So you're going to hold it. Most banks want you to hold onto the property for 6 months if you want to refinance at the higher value, which is absolutely fine. But because we're going to be able to tenant it during that time, we're actually able to benefit from the finance. There's also going to be refinance costs if we're to hold this over the long term, which is about £1,500, bringing the total cash in to £132,000. Now, the end value of this property will easily be 135, potentially 140,000. So not a dramatic amount more, but because we're doing it on that refinance, it then means we're going to be able to pull out quite a lot of money, leaving in just over £30,000. Now, it's not just a slight increase in value, nor is it just the increase in rent, which we will end up achieving a bit more on. It's more about the quality of the property over the long term, massively reducing maintenance, voids, all of that sort of thing, but also attracting the right tenant type. The reason the agent and the vendor was looking to sell this property is because they were just a fed up landlord attracting poor quality tenants. Well, if you got a shit house, who do you expect to attract? But when you've got a great quality property that you're renting out, you're more likely to get a great property tenant. But what are they willing to pay? Now, once you rent out this property, very typical in the area for an average property is about £700. But because this is going to be a fully refurbished property, I'd expect 725 or probably 750. And whilst that's not drastically different, it does make a difference. Once you take account of the mortgage, management at 10%, and any maintenance issues over the long term, you're netting around 275 per calendar month. It's also about the longevity and the quality of the tenant that's in. Based on that, that's going to be £3,300 per calendar year and great capital growth in the area, giving the investor a 10.7 return on their investment. What do you think they're getting in their bank account? 0. Fuck all. Here are 3 things I love about this property. Number 1 is the amount of value that you can be adding to this property. And I don't just mean as in increasing the value. I mean increasing the value to the tenant, which is going to attract the best people in and make this a really solid long-term investment. The second thing I like about this property is the area that it's in, and it shows the value of talking to your neighbours and the surrounding locals, is that there's a lot of money getting pumped in. So the properties next door, they are actually a council office. Often when there's a load of work going on in the area, the council will take over one of the vacant properties as their office. And actually, by digging a bit deeper, there's development of over 36 properties getting built here over the next year or two, which only adds value to this property. The last thing I like about this property is the general demand. Now, I always jump onto property data to analyze this, but there is a huge amount of buyer demand and a huge amount of rental demand. And what that means is the investment is likely to get better and better and better as the years go on. But it's not all good news. Here are 3 bad things about this property. The first thing I'm not a fan of in this property is these small details that actually cost a lot of money. For example, these actually look okay, these windows, but if you try to open it, they're now shut, and that is going to increase the cost dramatically. Not only that, you've also got things like this fairly normal looking wall going into the kitchen. But little details like this, where there's this gap, shoddy workmanship and gaps there, usually tells a sign. Let's see if you can see this. A few good shoves there would knock that bad boy down. Now, it's not a big deal because you've got the lintel across supporting all of the weight, but this is going to have to come down and be rebuilt. And if you miss that cost off, that's going to be a good £500 to £750 that you didn't take account of. The other thing that can be a negative is the size of the garden. Now, if this were a higher value area, you'd appreciate that because actually you could probably extend out, adding a load of value to the property. But it's not a £200,000–300,000 property, it's a £150,000 property. And so if you're going to keep this for the long term, there's a lot of maintenance that goes into a garden this big, and you need to think about that with your end tenant time. The third thing I'm not a fan of with this property is the property next door. Now, long term, it's not really a problem, but as you can imagine, for the eyesore of it, this is going to need to get a lot of work, and it would worry me about putting off potential tenants or indeed buyers. Not a problem long term, but definitely something to take account of. So the question is, am I going to rent it, flip in it, live in it, or avoid it? Well, I'm not going to live in it. It's not the sort of property that I personally want to live in. It's probably a longer term hold, is my gut. Will I avoid it? I want to be real with you. In terms of property that I've come to film, this has been the closest to the one that I would avoid. But considering we got it at such a great price within this, and the fact I understand by talking to the neighbours, looking on the council website about what's going on with these properties next door, it's actually a really exciting opportunity. Now, would I flip it? No, but maybe down the line, because I think once these are done and the development's gone on, let's say 3 years from now, it will skyrocket and it might be a great opportunity. But for now, this is going to be a long-term rental for one of our investors. And I actually own one myself down the road, but this investor was waiting for it. And I thought this is a great opportunity to get a double-digit 10.7 return on investment, making it a great buy-to-let. And in fact, buy, refurbish, refinance opportunity.